I officially want to say that it's been great to be here with all these wonderful presentations that have deep meaning and personal things. I'm going to show you a freaking slideshow of my vacation. This is called Why Conventions Are All About Food. Hit it. So I got to go to SF Contario, that's a science fiction convention in Toronto, and nothing says Toronto more than Maple Leaf Gardens, which is now owned by a college and has a Whole Foods type thing in it. This was kind of disappointing because I saw wrestling there when I was a kid and it was awesome. But this is right near where the hotel where the convention was. And the great thing about the convention was that I was a guest of honor. I got to be the fan guest of honor, largely because I do this fanzine called The Drink Tank. And I somehow convinced enough people to vote for it that I want a thing called the Hugo. That's that little rockety thing I'm holding. Also, I have a Flintstone shirt, and that automatically enables you to be a fan guest of honor. So they flew me out, they put me up, and the first thing I do when I get there is I go to Tim Hortons. Tim Hortons is not only the best coffee in the world, but it has the most amazing old-fashioned donut. And when I was toying with the idea of Vancouver Town here in San Jose, it would be the only part of town that would have a Tim Hortons. So I was happy, but they just started. And we had one day to do all of our sightseeing, and the first place we went was the Bata Shoe Museum. The Bata Shoe Museum is this huge museum, all of shoes. And I'm a museum guy. This is a 1920s exhibit, and it has hundreds of shoes and even more words. I was reading labels everywhere. And as a museum professional, I'm supposed to hate words. You're supposed to say, no, it's all about the objects. No, I want words. But even more than words, I want giant cowboy boots. And this is one thing that I loved about this museum, is that it had this wonderful display sensibility that was very bright and very pop. It was very much not what we think of when we think of museums. But more important than this whole museum concept was one simple word: poutine. If you have not had poutine, it is a French-Canadian delicacy made of French fries, cheese curd, gravy, and amazingness. And so Smoke's Poutinerie on Bloor Street did this wonderful, this is gravy, mushrooms, and it's this pepper gravy with meat, and the phone is there to give you a sense of perspective. Whenever I go to any city, I go to find what their local comic book shop is. And Labyrinth is an amazing comic shop because it has French comics, it has American comics, it had a huge rack of Arabic comics, which were just some of the most interesting drawings I've ever seen. They were all black and white, just gorgeous stuff. If you ever get out there, also on Bloor. The Royal Ontario Museum is basically the Smithsonian scrunched into one room. And it's wonderful, these carvings out here, I just adore. But it didn't really get me prepared for what I would see. So the first thing that you come across this giant dinosaur in the lobby, and it's about 40 feet tall, it's just one in the middle, and it's very dramatic, and it looks like it's about to topple over onto you. On the first floor also there's this wonderful, wonderful Asian gallery, and you can get all 360 degrees around these two statues. You can get really, really close. And as a museum professional, I'm like, people are gonna touch it! And then there's that Dior dress, which is like under like plexiglass inside of another plexiglass. You can never have enough dinosaurs. And this one, to me, is the most museum-y thing ever. Because it looks like it's about to eat you, and if you're actually there, you can get that close, and it looks like it's about to eat you. The cooler thing, though, is that Canada is weird, and so they have this great section of arms and armor. And so, one of the things they have there is that. This is in the arms and armor. Next to it, there's a guy with a blunderbuss, and he's like, thing, and R. And so this is Canada, people. So, it's spectacular. This is the first thing you see when you walk in there. Canada has their priorities. And now I breathe. One of the things is they took us, all the guests of honor, to the Merrill collection of science fiction. It's the largest science fiction collection in the nation, or country, or state of Canada. And so they have hundreds of things. They took us on a tour. There were fanzines, there were books, there were paintings, there were dividers. It was great. And so Jo Walton, who won the Hugo Award for Best Novel last year for her book Among Others, a spectacular book, by the way, a wonderful friend of mine from Montreal, and she was the writer guest of honor. So we got to pal around, and she did a wonderful reading of a story that actively made me cry, because I'm usually a passive crier. So this was one of those just spectacular moments. But this led into food, and we like food. Linda is having a wonderful Monte Cristo sandwich. with a, now what you don't see there sadly is the side of raspberry dipping sauce. And I had a lovely little, very authentic and watery spaghetti with that pasta dish, spaghetti, never mind. But this is actually part of what was once the Maple Leaf Gardens. And this is this huge sausage display. I counted, because I do that, there were 140 different types of sausage. Now what's incredible is that every single one of them tasted disgusting. Because I tried 5, and once you've tried 5, you've tried everything. And all of them were terrible. This is Sarah Water-Raven. You've never heard of her. She's never done anything important, except for this one story that also made me actively, when I usually passively cried. It was a story of a guy who was trying to find his socks. This does not sound heartbreaking, but it is. I can't go further. This is John Singer, the Arts and Science Guest of Honor, and the important thing about this slide is that I bought that. That glaze is actually made from clay from the garden of Neil Gaiman, who is a really good friend of John's. So I love Neil. I lost a Hugo to him last year. It was awesome. And I have that now next to my glowworm on my desk at home. These are some wonderful people, and I'm going to tell a story that is completely unrelated to the next 2 slides. So I happened to mention, while I was out there, that I really like this Armenian food called lamajin. It's a wonderful sort of pizza pie thing. I hadn't had it in 10 years because I dumped the girl who cheated on me, who was Armenian, who got it for me. That's all backstory. Well, I mentioned this, and about an hour later we had the closing ceremonies, about 5 minutes after people started making Peeps art. And I was like, you know, this is a great time, I've had a wonderful thing, I was ready to say great things. And at the closing ceremonies, they came, and someone said, Chris, we have something for you, and they brought a box of lamajin. And I literally snatched it out of their hands, threw it on the table, opened it up, rolled it, and ate it, and I was in heaven. And all the photos of that moment, with me looking like there are choirs of angels behind me, none of them came out. So here are cookies. Also from the thing at the Maple Leaf Gardens. And yeah, thanks.